Hey everybody, I'm PeanutButterGamer and welcome to my final Zelda month video. Who is this? Who is this? Who put this tiny sentiment hat on my head? Who's responsible? Stop playing the music! Stop it! Who changed my wallpaper to a picture of Santa with many adorable little animals? Who's responsible? Who's responsible for this? Was this like some kind of joke to you people? It's all making fun of PVG because he's slow, huh? You know, It's the top 8 Zelda dungeons. Merry Zelda month, everybody. I love you. So yeah, Link Between Worlds came out late in November. A lot of people wanted me to talk about it, and while I didn't really have time to make an entire video, I am including it in this list. The whole game is really solid, and I think it's actually one of my favorite 2D Zelda games to date. My favorite dungeon in the game is the Thieves' Hideout, which is located in the northern part of the town in Lorule. And it starts off with a quiz. A smart thief fears the boss's wrath. I'd rather be on a cliff walking the precipice. Sometimes it hurts too much to care. You think knowledge is power, but it's really a bear! Every time I say I'm a-leaving, this accursed life sets me right back to adventure in. Oh, wow, everybody! I'd like to thank the Academy! Not really, though. It's thieving. Lame. Since it's a thief dungeon, of course you can expect a lot of treasure, but there's also a lot of traps. Like this one where you walk into a room and a bunch of grabby monsters start attacking you. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't paying any attention when this happened. I died and I lost all my items. Okay, fly back to your house, go through the wall, rent your items back. You don't have enough rupees, go get more rupees. Gamble it all away at the treasure chest place. Go for a little walk and think about your life choices and eventually end up back in the dungeon somehow. Aw yeah, I've got myself a new thieving girlfriend. And in a pretty cool twist, instead of solving puzzles, now we just gotta find a way out of here. Only these pervs can't seem to keep their hands off my girlfriend. I feel like a linebacker in a football game, except I have a sword. That's probably not allowed. But it doesn't really matter because even if they do manage to get her, they just throw her back in the same dungeon without bothering to lock the door back up. Genius! Up next is a dungeon from Skyward Sword, more specifically, the Sand Ship. On the Sand Ship, we've got to save this guy's crew. The only problem is, they're all dead. Well, more specifically, they just don't have any power. So, we've got to fix it. Did I mention we're on a pirate ship? Because that's cool. You even get to fight the pirate captain, which is surprisingly not the final boss fight. That would be a more chubby version of Celia from Monsters, Inc. over here. All right, let's take this guy out. Fee, would you shut up? I'm fighting a freaking pirate! This is also the dungeon where you get the bow, which would probably be a plus by default, but the way it's used is also pretty cool. The whole ship transforms from old to new by shooting a time shift stone on the mast that can be seen from various parts of the ship. Basically, depending on what you're doing, you may need the ship to be old and dusty, or you may need it to be shiny and futuristic. This, along with the pirate theme, is what this whole dungeon is based on. Also, there's scorpions. There's only one way to take care of all these guys. Skill mode engaged. The next dungeon is Eagle's Tower from Link's Awakening. This dungeon is pretty complicated, but the basic concept is simple to grasp, which makes it fun. And that basic concept is, you're in a tower, and since ladders apparently haven't been invented yet, you have to destroy the pillars of said tower with a wrecking ball in order to collapse the entire building so that you can get to the top and fight the boss. And that, in a nutshell, is why I like this dungeon. It kind of sounds like an idea a 4-year-old would come up with, and I'm okay with that. It also has Kirby in it, more specifically anti-Kirbys, who I guess are basically evil Kirbys? Doesn't sound very threatening, but I don't know, after seeing Attack on Titan recently, the idea of being eaten is less than appealing to me. I've been talking about the Wind Waker a lot over the past few videos, as well as doing videos with it on my gameplay channel, but one thing I haven't really talked much about are the dungeons. More specifically for this video, the Earth Temple. A big reason why I like this temple is because you're actually accompanied by my favorite character in the game, Medley. You even get to ride with her on your boat on the way to the temple, which I always found to be a small but really charming touch. You also get to play as Medley by using the command melody, though her run animation is a bit stiff. This dungeon, as well as most of the other dungeons in this game, isn't all that complicated, but it has a lot of cool light puzzles, as well as just generally a creepy atmosphere. But oh well, I know I'll be fine because I have my best friend, Medley, with me. Where did she... Medley? Why are you looking at me like that? Medley? Medley? Medley! One of the Zelda games I've neglected to talk about over the years is the Minish Cap for the Game Boy Advance, but I remember it having some really solid dungeons, especially for a 2D handheld Zelda game. I didn't have a copy of the game handy anymore, seeing as how it's one of the games my older brothers seem to end up with for some reason. Stole my Wind Waker. What is it about fake coughing that always gives me the hiccups? Oh, jeez. So I had to play through the game again. I intended to include Palace of Winds in this list because, you know, way. But as I was playing through the Temple of Droplets, the dungeon right before the Palace of Winds, I remembered just how solid of a dungeon it was. By far the coolest thing about the Minish Cap is shrinking down to the size of a Picori and experiencing the world from the view of something about the size of an ant. And while there are other minuscule dungeons in the game, I feel like the Temple of Droplets does the best job of making you feel tiny as you explore it. Another thing I like is the fact that you see not only the element you're looking for, but also the boss of the dungeon really early on, both of which are frozen. So the whole point of the dungeon isn't to get where they are, but rather to find a way to melt the ice they're encased in. This dungeon also has a lot of different elements mixed into it. There's fire, water, ice, light, and as Eslo kindly reminds you, darkness. Watch your step, I don't want you to trip over anything. And what do I do immediately after that? Instantly fall. Just wonderful. Up next is by far one of the creepiest dungeons in any Zelda game, the Shadow Temple. And this temple is awesome for that very reason. They really didn't hold back with the whole dark theme in this dungeon, especially for an E-rated game in the N64 era. There's creepy music, skeletons and shiz, and there's even cryptic dialogue plastered everywhere. Shadow Temple. Here is gathered Hyrule's bloody history of greed and hatred. There's just stuff like that everywhere. The Shadow Temple is kinda tricky. You have to use the lens of truth a lot in order to see doors, traps, floors, and or gigantic invisible Grim Reapers with scythes. You know, just the usual stuff. But if all that scary stuff is getting you down, you can always play some bomb basketball to cheer yourself up.
For two! Is it the shoes?
One of the most highly acclaimed dungeons across the internet from what I've seen is Stone Tower Temple from Majora's Mask. And I think it's pretty safe to say it's praised for good reason. At first it appears to be relatively simple, but after playing through it a bit, you eventually start flipping the entire dungeon upside down with light arrows. And that's when things start getting really interesting, and it introduces some very creative and unique puzzle mechanics. It's also pretty awesome to see the sky from below you, and pretty funny to watch Link fall from the ceiling. Oh no! Even before you get the light arrows, there's a lot of fun light puzzles similar to the ones I showed from the Wind Waker. And then there's this part, which is probably the only part of the dungeon I don't like. You have to shine the light into these mirrors for quite some time in order to charge the light so that you can run forward to continue the cycle. The only problem is these annoying black puff enemies straight out of My Neighbor Totoro keep respawning and won't leave you the frack alone. But now that I think about it, I've already beaten the game on this save file, so I can just cheat and use the light arrows even though I'm not supposed to have them yet. And if you don't have the light arrows, you can always use my one and only love, the Stone Mask. You can't see me! Suck it! Stone Tower Temple, also being the fourth dungeon in the game, has a lot of puzzles for every form Link can take. And since you have all four of the masks at this point, it also utilizes the Elegy of Emptiness in a lot of puzzles. So, I hope you like to play the Elegy of Emptiness, because you'll be playing the Elegy of Emptiness a lot. I have unintentionally, I should add, upset some Twilight Princess fans in the past by saying it wasn't one of my all-time favorite Zelda games in the series. I do, contrary to popular belief, actually enjoy the game quite a bit, and while I still probably wouldn't put it in my top 3 to 5 Zelda games, I can admit that when I did my top 10 Zelda games list, I was in a phase where I wasn't so high on the game. Let me just say this. While they generally stay more or less the same, my opinions on Zelda games do occasionally tend to shift from time to time, depending on which game I played most recently, or even depending on which games I played too much of recently. I think I had a bit of the latter on Twilight Princess at the time I did that video. I've since talked more positively about the game and even mentioned a few things specifically that I like about it. But the one thing that stands out the most in Twilight Princess is always Arbiter's Grounds. It's by far the best part of the game to me. Even the part leading up to the Arbiter's Grounds is cool. I'm like some kind of bow and arrow ninja of the night. Right between the eyes. Got him. The Arbiter's Grounds is almost like a mixture of Indiana Jones and the Mummy to me. First you got the Scarab Beetles, and they're actually kind of freaking me out. Let's just change the scene here. Then there's these mini skeleton guys, which are also kind of eerie in a way. Especially since they come in such large packs. Seriously, look at these guys. They're like something right out of a child's nightmare. And keeping with the creepy theme, the basic goal of this dungeon is to find and kill the hidden Poes so that they can relight the torches a la the Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time. But unlike the Poes in Ocarina of Time, these guys are actually pretty scary. Especially when they do that thing where they kind of mouth silent words at you. I mean, what is up with that? Stop it! But they're not so tough. You just gotta make out with them a bit and then they poof to death. And this is also the dungeon where you get to surf with the spinner, but I already talked about that quite extensively. So bye-bye! Hey everybody, thanks for watching my Zelda video. You can watch another Zelda video I did by clicking right here. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe by clicking the Master Sword right here. Also, make sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter if you are so inclined. Bye-bye! Actually, I already said bye-bye. Farewell!